Hey, what's up, guys? Right now, I'm about to go over a few selected gods that I think you may or may not have heard of before. You might find it interesting. All of us today are pretty much monotheistic followers. We all believe in one God. Maybe we don't. There's a lot of nations today that have a plethora of gods they believe in, and they all represent different elements, um, powers, abilities, for luck, whatever. But believe it or not, our ancestors used to worship multiple gods with different powers and abilities and, represented different things. And I'm just going to lay out a couple for you. And, maybe you heard of these guys, through, popular TV and movies. And maybe you're just hearing them for the first time. Either way, check it out. You might learn something. All right, here we go. Okay, so without wasting your time, first runner up, you guys, probably heard of this one. Zeus, the god of thunder, the sky, weather, um, so many things. He's like pretty much the father of the gods. And if you watched, you know, any documentary in the world about Greek mythology, he's kind of, the top dog. Basically, he got his place of fame winning this big rebellion in the sky against the um, Titans. So the Titans were before the Olympians. The Olympians were like, Zeus, Apollo, Hermes, all those guys. And the Titans were, Kronos, Prometheus, and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, big civil war. Zeus comes on top, and he's got a bunch of brothers, Poseidon, um, Hades, and, all those other guys. And, they all kind of take turns ruling the world in their own way and going about their business. Sometimes they, have conflict with one another, but anyway, Zeus, it's kind of hard not to include him in this list because he's just, he's there, top dog. I mean, he's just, represents a lot. He's worshipped a lot. And I think out of the whole list, probably the one you've heard multiple times. So, he's no stranger to the spotlight. But yeah, Zeus, I like him. He's cool. All right, next up, probably might be surprised about this one. Hades, yes, god of the underworld. And, lord over the dead. Now, this guy gets a bad rap, okay? First of all, for some reason, we associate him with the devil and Satan and everything underground. It's think of it this way. Okay, so he has two other brothers, Poseidon and Zeus, and one takes the sky, one takes the sea, and the only places left is the underground. Kind of a bum choice, but the guy, he takes it. But get this, so Zeus and Poseidon are like I don't want to say, crybabies, but they're very agitated gods, especially Poseidon. And Zeus is no stranger to having bad days. But Hades is kind of like level-headed, believe it or not. He kind of makes you choose your destiny when you reach the underworld. He doesn't have like a pitchfork. He's got like a bident, which is like a trident missing the middle part. He's got that hellhound, the Cerberus, I believe its name was. And the more that I read about the guy, he doesn't seem that bad. Sure, he's got a very dark title, and his appearance is a little rough. But guess what? He's the god of riches too. Apparently, his underground lair is like loaded with jewels and diamonds. Because if you think about it, where do we get jewels and diamonds from? The earth, right? Deep underground. We go digging for it, and this guy has it like surrounded. So hey, the man's rich, and I'm sure people worship this guy in hopes of getting riches. Actually, they were pretty like petrified. I don't think they mentioned Hades that much. But he existed, and our perception today is just ridiculous. It's nothing like it was back then compared to now. All right, moving on. Here we go. Hermes, the guy with the funny looking hat and funny shoes. He's got wings on both. The messenger of the gods, also the god of commerce, thieves, trickery, and travelers. But I like this guy. He's got a lot of titles. Kind of a boss man. One story, as soon as he was born in his baby state, because gods are like, gods when they're babies too. He stole his brother Apollo's, cattle, and Apollo went through hell and high water to get his, farm animals back. Blamed Hermes for it, and Hermes was like, "No, no, man, chill out. Here, let me play you this music instrument," and it kind of won over Apollo, and yeah. So, despite the whole being god of trickery and all that stuff, kind of reminds me of Loki a little bit. Yeah, another guy who's definitely a money bag. Literally, he carries a money bag with him. Sure, he might look funny, and he's noted for running really, really fast and telling people news. Um, he's kind of the god you want to seek if you're looking for some money in your pocket. It's just kind of how it worked back then, and he's one of my favorites up there, and I like him. I think he's a cool dude. Got a cool look, a nice helmet going on there, and just a well-rounded god. He's one of the good ones, I think. Then definitely deserves more attention in the spotlight as opposed to Zeus and Poseidon and all those guys. All right, and that moves me up to Apollo, god of music, archery, dance, truth, prophecies, healing, and diseases. So another one who has a lot of titles. He was around for a while. And when the Romans, started adapting Greek gods, this guy's name didn't change. Zeus became Jupiter, Poseidon, Neptune, Hermes, Mercury, but Apollo kind of relatively stayed the same. And yeah, cool guy, very bright. I mean that because he was the god of the sun too. And just lover of the arts. So I guess if you were, into philosophy back then or poetry, this was the guy you probably sought to for luck. Apollo seems to be a lover of the arts and healing diseases. He was good with a bow. Took on a few evil entities back then. Or probably just one really big monster and slayed it, or did some damage. But yeah, another really cool god. I think it's worth mentioning. Apollo, he's up there. I like him. All right, here's another one. You guys might know right off the bat. Thor, the god of thunder, and he means business. Just look at his profile. Dude's got a hammer, a horn helmet. Vikings love this guy. Obviously, they wanted to be Thor, so I'm sure they worshipped him and his father Odin a lot. So yeah, every Norse mythology has a story. Ragnar, Eric the Red. All these guys have these long, written out stories. Some might be exaggerated, but they're all just these epic novels, Game of Thrones style. And I think the Vikings especially had a lot to do with kind of jump starting the Renaissance medieval times, and they're just popular. Everywhere you look, there's something Viking related. And now that you have Marvel and the comics, obviously the Avengers, Thor plays a very big role, and he's he had his own movie. He's unmissable. He's a very standout character, full of charisma, lovable, and yeah, just action packed. I mean, when you think of Thor, you think he's like battle ready. He's at freaking lightning bolts and stuff. He means business. So and I appreciate the guy. He's a weather god. Crashed down thunder and lightning on his enemies and smashed them with his hammer. And prepare for Ragnarok, which is like Viking mythology for the end of the world. Everyone goes out in a bang, apparently. So yeah, he's on my list too, Thor, and should be on your list too. All right, guys, you ready to get weird? Here's another god you may or may not have heard of, called Perun, or Perun. Hope I'm saying that right. It's Perun, and he's a Slavic god. Yes, Slavs, people from Eastern Europe. So think of Ukrainians, Russians, the people of Eastern Europe. So he was another pantheon type of god. So he was like the top dog. In charge of sky, thunder, lightning, storms. He was a Slavic Zeus, put it that way. And he was worshipped by, like I said, those type of people. And the eastern part of Europe. And, probably, the Baltic too. You start to see a pattern here with other gods, not resembling other, gods physically, but like having the same powers and stuff. So you have to wonder, was there a connection there at one point? Who knows? I'm sure there was. I'm sure there was some kind of, tale being told, maybe. And all these gods had the same attributes. They broke away, different regions. Who knows? Were they real? I don't know. Just saying. But, yeah, another one who had many titles. And, like the guy was god of fertility, nobility, warrior class, yada yada yada. So basically, Zeus, Thor, just in a Slavic perspective, and instead of carving, so what the Slavs did, instead of carving them out of like stone, they carved them out of like tree trunks, so it looks very pagan-y. All these are pagan gods, but the most pagan, I guess, would be these guys that would dress like in animal skins and worship them, in a forest. So it's pretty Wicker Man, if you ask me. But that's just me saying that. But yeah, I think he's different, and that's why I mentioned him here. Almost forgot Mars, the god of war and soldiers, masculinity, destruction, and farmers. He was the Roman version of Ares. Ares was the, Greek god of war. A little unstable, Ares. Mars kind of had a level head. I mean, yes, he was a tough guy, being the god of war and all, you kind of have to. But, just level-headed. He was the good general. He was Patton. General Patton. It was awesome. And apparently, the myth goes, he was the father of the Roman people. He was the father of the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, if you guys are familiar with that story. Those who guys kind of, made Rome what it was, and, became the great empire and all that jazz. So, yeah, Mars, you can't not miss him. He has to be included in this because, think about it. He's just tough all around, and doesn't take no shit. So yeah, Mars definitely had to be added to this list. All right, this next one is Sumerian. Sumerian being one of the first early civilizations in Mesopotamia. So think of modern day Iraq, around there. Enki. So when I was doing research on the Anunnaki, the supposed creators of humanity, and all that stuff, this guy popped up. So Inky, if you look at the picture, big old hat, probably huge stature, a god. Just different, obviously, these guys, taught cuneiform to the populace and so on and so forth. And the whole creation myth kind of originated from these guys. I mean, it's not a myth. We were obviously created for a purpose, and this story just sounds very familiar. Made us out of clay and blood, and voila, you got humans. So yeah, it sounds very familiar. In fact, I have a Titan, which I talked a little about earlier, that's similar to this guy, just Greek. And I'm not going to mention him here. I'm going to mention him in my next one. But anyway, yeah, Inky. But I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name. But yeah, the God of Creation. Pretty powerful title, if you ask me. Intelligence, crafts, water, seawater. You get the deal here. Another guy who had a lot of names attached to him and a lot of abilities. But biggest one that sticks out about this guy was being the creator of man, and that's no easy task. So, definitely props to him. He's another one I think should definitely be in the spotlight. And if you guys don't know about the Anunnaki, definitely check it out. It's too much to talk about right now, but they got their whole thing going on. The starters of civilization. It's a mess and definitely fun to dive into. So do yourself a favor and check them out. The Anunnaki. All right. The last one on the list was from Phoenicia. His name was Melkart, or Milkart. I know, it's kind of funny, but he was Phoenician. What can I say? So Phoenicia, now being Lebanon, Beirut, so that part. He was the god, of kind of reminds me of like Hermes a little bit. Commerce, agriculture, seafarers, different colonies, and he wasn't just worshipped in his home country. I mean, yes, he was, obviously, worshipped as a deity in the main city of Tyre or Tyre in Phoenicia, but being that they were kind of like all over the place at the time, the Phoenicians were like competitors to the Greeks. They kind of traveled everywhere. So everywhere the Phoenicians went, they brought this guy along with them. Spain, Sicily, and North Africa. In fact, the colony that they settled there, which became Carthage, he was also worshipped there. And they were a little different. I mean, they had temples, but they didn't really erect statues like that to look like their gods. I mean, they eventually did, but it's just completely different. Has a very Eastern feel, put it that way. In the sense of like the whole Mesopotamians would, but not quite. They had their own thing going on. Now, with this guy, what makes him kind of different, and the reason why I want to add him was, not only because of his, many, many titles, being, the god of, the royalty and wealth and, people that travel and all that stuff, is, much like how, we kind of demonize Hades, same thing with this guy. Like I said, he was also attached to being god of the underworld and all that jazz, but, the way they worshipped him. So the Phoenicians were worship level was 100, where the Greeks were kind of 50. So the Greeks were, and the Romans were settled with, killing animals. Maybe, someone would offer themselves up. Not like the Vikings, though. The Vikings were, hardcore about it. But so were the freaking Phoenicians. I'm talking human sacrifices here. Yeah, not just animals. And it didn't really matter what type of human either, if you catch my drift. It could be a regular, adult, a child, these things happen. These were different times, but they thought by doing this they would reap the rewards that were attached to this god that they worshipped. And if you think about it today, we donate money to churches. It's not definitely not a sacrifice. We're not spilling blood, but blood, sweat, and tears that go into labor collecting the money, then handing that money over to church people who buy a church. And we're there, we worship different religious icons depending on which type of religion, Islam, Judaism, Christianity you worship. There's always a place of worship, just like how the pagans used to worship. It was either a piece of land and forest that they would dance around a fire and worship the gods, or a temple, or a cave, with a statue erected in the likeness of the god. And this went on for a very, very long time until Christianity kind of came and kind of wiped it out a little bit. You don't really hear too much of pagan stuff because people right away like, oh my god, pagans, man, evil. But nah, if you think about it, especially if you're European or Egyptian for that matter, you definitely one of your great ancestors worshipped one of these statues, and that's just kind of how it is. Or actually how it was. We all came from something, and in a way, not much has changed. Oh, a definitely honorable mention. So I'm sure you guys are probably sick of hearing about Egyptian mythology, but definitely have to mention this. Thoth, the Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. Cool guy, kind of. He's like a bird man, but definitely, when I think of Egypt, I think of this guy. His carvings everywhere, and the Egyptians definitely, like, you want to talk about exotic, worship, they kind of take the cake if you think about it. Even to this day, there's a movement called neo-paganism, which, people from these cultures ditched the, one-sided god they worshipped to going back to the old gods. Yeah, that's a thing. Look it up, But, I definitely look at it at a interesting historic point of view, and how these gods being different in different continents, somehow or another, are all kind of related with their abilities and, everything they're attached to. Could it be a coincidence? Could it be something else? I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. But, yeah, that's really all I got to say today. So, hope you liked it. Like I said, I find this stuff interesting, and I threw in some people that you guys would normally not really hear about on the old TV or History Channel, and hopefully you learned something. Alright, guys. Once again, here's my list of ancient gods people used to worship. Thanks for listening, and until next time, peace.